Hello students, welcome again. Students, in our previous video lecture, we discussed William Wordsworth as the poet of nature. In today's video lecture, we want to discuss P.B. Shelley as a romantic poet, Shelley as a great lyricist of the period of romantic revival. Friends, we know that during the period of Romantic revival in the beginning of the 19th century, there were some great poets like Coleridge, Wordsworth, Keats, Byron, and Shelley who have become immortal in the hearts of the readers, and Shelley is on top of them. Shelley, who lived a very short life, he was born in 1792 and died in 1822. So, within these 30 years of a short life, he has written hundreds of memorable poems in English literature, and he was one of the leaders of the movement of Romanticism during the 19th century. The most important quality of Shelley as a poet is that he was a great lyricist. Lyricist means you find all important qualities of a lyric in his poems, and that's why he has been acclaimed unanimously by all the historians and critics as a great lyricist of English literature. Okay, what are the major contributions of Shelley as a poet? Then, as you can see on the screen, he wrote some classic short poems like Ozymandias, Ode to the West Wind, To a Skylark, The Cloud, and so many others. He has also written some longer poems like The Queen Mab, The Revolt of Islam, Adonis, The Triumph of Life. And he has also written some poetic plays, or you can say the verse play, the drama written in the form of poetry, The Cenci, published in 1819, and Prometheus Unbound, published in 1820. Now, Shelley is a great lyricist. What is a lyric? Lyric, as you know, because in one of my previous videos I have discussed that also, that lyric is a short poem, it's a musical poem, and it expresses the personal subjective emotions and experiences of the poet. Now, when we read Shelley's poems, we find all these qualities. His poems are full of music and melody. His poems are written on single subject matter. His poems are full of imagination and emotions, and most of his poems are subjective by nature. Subjective means autobiographical, which expresses the poet's feelings. Okay, and that's the reason why we consider him as a great lyricist. His poems like To a Skylark, Ode to the West Wind, and so many others, they express the personal emotions spontaneously in his poems, right? Shelley is also seen as a lover of nature. He had complete respect for nature, just like his contemporary William Wordsworth. He was a passionate admirer of nature. Okay, Shelley, just like William Wordsworth, he saw the spirit, some spiritual aspects in all forms of nature, and he believed that nature is the supreme power, and all such ideas, spiritual ideas, and spiritual attachment with all forms of nature are presented in all his poems like To a Skylark, to the Moon, Ode to the West Wind, A Dream of the Unknown. all these poems glorify nature as the central idea in them, right? Moreover, another important thing to notice in his poetry, in Shelley's poetry, is the element of spontaneity. Spontaneity means effortlessness. Without effort, naturally the poem comes to P.B. Shelley. You remember John Keats? John Keats once very nicely said that if poetry does not come as naturally as leaves to a tree, then it better had not come at all. So, Keats very strongly believed that poetry should come naturally to the poet, just like the leaves come to a tree. Okay, in the same manner, Shelley's poetry are also spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. If I use William Wordsworth's words, okay, when we read this poem, To a Skylark, written by Shelley, there he sings like naturally, just like a bird. Okay, you mark this line, teach me half the gladness that thine brain must know, such harmonious madness from my lips would flow. The world should listen then as I am listening now. So the words are coming naturally in his poetry. So that is one thing. Historians also consider Shelley as a visionary poet. Okay, in most of his poems, he has expressed his strong desire, his will, his longing for an ideal life, the ideal world. And that is why we may consider him as a visionary poet. You know, he had a vision of an ideal life that is expressed in so many of his poems. Ode to the West Wind is one example where he expresses his wish or desire to be united with the force of the wind. He requests or he appeals to the wind to lift him like a wave, like a leaf, or like a cloud. In the end of this poem, he urges the west wind to infuse its power in him so that he can play the trumpet of prophecy and render his message to mankind. So he requests the west wind to give him power in order to establish the new order, in order to establish an ideal life, an ideal world. So that's why we consider him as a visionary poet. Another important thing that we notice in his poems is two things. Number one, his pessimism is expressed and his optimism, means his sad approach to life and his positive approach to life, both are expressed beautifully, artistically in all his poems. You know, Shelley was very much unhappy with the corruption and tyranny and other some social issues of his times in his society. But he believes in the imminent drawing of a new era. He was also a positive man. He believed that new time is now coming which will establish the new era, the new age, and the new world. So, positivity and negativity both are going side by side in most of his poems. Mark these lines taken from his poem Stanzas Written in Dejection Near Naples. Here he expresses his sorrow, his pessimism, his sad approach to life. You read these lines, alas, I have not hope, nor health, nor peace within, nor calm around, nor fame, nor power, nor love, and no leisure. So, kind of negativity is presented. The same negativity you find in his another poem which is entitled as A Lament. Out of the day and night, a joy has taken flight. He says that all through the day and all through the night, the joy has taken flight, means the joy has gone away. Fresh spring and summer and winter hoar move my faint heart with grief. No matter what the season is, whether it is spring, summer, or winter, my heart is full of grief, of agony, of sadness, of disappointment. So, this is again sadness. This sadness continues in this poem, Ode to the West Wind. He says, I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. The poet is, this is extreme pessimism. He says that I am bleeding, blood coming out from my body. Why? Because I am falling upon the life which is a thorny life full of thorns. Okay. But this melancholy turns into pleasure. Melancholy means sadness, disappointment turns into pleasure towards the end of the poem, and there he writes this line, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? So what if the winter comes? Always winter is followed by spring. So this is positive approach towards life which he has presented towards the end of the poem. In Hellas also we find this positivity. He writes here, he expresses his optimistic view of life in these three lines. He says, the world is a great age, the world's great age begins anew, the golden yearns return, the earth doth like a snake renew. Just like a snake renews itself after one season, in the same manner, he says that the golden years are returning. The golden time is coming back. So, positivity is also presented along with negativity. So, optimism and pessimism, these are the two things which we find in his poetry. Another important thing about Shelley as a lyricist is his musical quality. What is a lyric? A lyric is one which we can sing to a tune, right? Which is singable. So the element of music and melody must be there in a lyric, and the poems like To a Skylark, Ode to the West Wind, written by Shelley, we find this musical quality in these poems. In fact, Shelley wrote Defense of Poetry as a critique. Shelley is also known as a critic. I think you must know these things, right? And there he has written this line, poet is a nightingale. He compares the poet to a nightingale. Nightingale is a bird which sings melodious songs at night. Okay, the poet is a nightingale who sits in darkness and sings to cheer its own solitude with sweet sounds. So, who is a poet according to Shelley? According to him, a poet is one who has sweet sounds. Poet is one who is lonely, but he enjoys his solitude by singing songs. Okay, To a Skylark is highly melodious poem. Mark these 4 lines. Even you can sing this line in a proper manner. Like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden till the world is wrought. Kind of rhythm, kind of melody is found in his poems, and that is the reason why he is considered as a great lyricist of English literature. So here we come to the end of this discussion, and let me conclude by saying that Percy Bysshe Shelley, this is the full name, okay? P.B. Shelley was indeed an extraordinary, outstanding romantic poet, a romantic lyricist of the 19th century, English literature. Why? Because he has expressed his love for nature, he has expressed his pessimism and optimism. We find spontaneous expression of his subjective personal feelings in his poems, and his poems are full of music and melody, and that is the reason why he is considered as a great lyricist of English literature. So here we come to the end. If you have any doubts or questions on this topic, please do write to me in the comment section of this channel, and please do share this video among your friends and classmates. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.